Hello everyone and welcome, this is Comedy and Cam. Today I'm going to review Netflix's second season of the Transformers WAR for Cybertron trilogy, this being Earthrise, but on the Netflix site itself it's actually separate, it's not part of the same kind of like playlist. You know, you'd have like Siege or Season 1 and then you can scroll down to Earthrise Season 2, but for some reason they're separate. And I don't know why this wasn't actually made into movies instead of like a series. I feel like it would have flowed better if they were kind of like separate movies, kind of like how they did it with the Godzilla anime movies a little bit. Because it is a series, it is one continuous show. I just don't understand why they don't have it all in one place. They kind of just have it separate. Like I actually had to search up Earthrise to find it. I thought it would be next to Chapter 1. But no, they've made Chapter 2 just separate, so it's kind of like, okay. Now to get onto the show itself, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to actually do all the episodes in one big video instead of individually, because I just don't have the patience and I really don't want to do that. I'm not going to go into full spoilers straight away. I will give you a warning before I go into spoilers, you know, if you care about that sort of thing, or if you've not seen the series yet. I'll just kind of give you a summary of how I thought to the series, and then I'll dive into spoilers when I talk about episodes individually for a little bit. So starting off how I felt about this show. Well, I wasn't impressed with Siege. In fact, I found Siege very, very boring, and I wasn't kind of hopeful for the next series. And I saw the trailers, and I saw they crammed a kind of lot of stuff in. And to be honest, the trailer showing off a lot of stuff, compared to the actual show, actually wasn't as bad as I thought. In fact, it kind of worked kind of well. And that's one thing that's kind of surprised me about Earthrise, is that, well, this is definitely better than Siege. And you can definitely feel that with a kind of different colour palette as well. You can definitely feel there's a different tone in terms of how the show looks itself. But this time I did something a little bit different that I've noticed a lot of people have been doing. Well, I changed the speed to 1.5. And I've got to be honest, I think it did the show a lot of favours. If you have it on 1.5 speed, the pacing of the show feels more normal. It feels right. It feels better because there's a lot of slow stuff that happens throughout this series. But towards the end, it does start to speed up a little bit, which is good because that's one of the biggest issues I had with Siege, was just the pacing. The dialogue was so slow. Megatron's dialogue is painfully slow, and it continues in this series, but when you have it on 1.5 speed, it works better. It works better for Megatron's character as well, because the plot does this thing a lot where everything slows down when there's kind of chaos in the background, and when something fatal is about to go down, something obviously saves in the last second. And unfortunately that happens a lot in this show. There's something crucial that's happening, but then like just some character like saves the day in the last minute, and it's kind of a bit unrealistic at times. I mean, these are Transformers. What I meant by realistic, you get what I mean. But when I just watching it in a different context in terms of the speed, it does significantly change the show in a positive way, I think. And you know, that's not me trying to be so hard on this series at all. Like, I actually liked a lot of stuff that was in Earthrise. This was definitely an improvement over the last season. I just felt like the speed kind of helped me enjoy it more. It won't work for everybody. Some people will enjoy the 1.5 speed. Some people will just watch it normal, you know, because if you're normal. But for me to actually want to enjoy the show, I had to put on that speed, which obviously is a bad thing that I had to do that. You know, I had to click to speed up the show, but not that much. Not really that much at all. The dialogue feels better paced when you have it on 1.5 speed. The action scenes, on the other hand, okay, maybe you want to have it back to normal. But still, nonetheless, that's one of my main criticisms of the entire trilogy that we've seen so far. But overall, yeah, this series does a really good job of throwing in little bits of lore from the past, from kind of present, and mixing it up a little bit, kind of giving it a good remix with the Quintessons inclusion. I really liked that mix, and it went really dark with them really, really quickly. With Optimus Prime and Megatron kind of having a bit more of a development, especially with Megatron as well, actually having him kind of very conflicted on him slowly becoming this evil maniac. There's a lot of good throw-ins, good remixes of past lore, like I said, and there's a lot of good references, there's a lot of good Easter eggs, you know, lines from Generation 1 in particular. But just because there's Easter eggs on the show doesn't make it great by any means, of course not. But I did like the Easter eggs, and I got every single one of them, and I did enjoy that they were included. And they were included right as well. They were really included right. So there were some really good nods to past Transformers shows, which was nice, which kind of made me go, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm glad that the first episode started out with Elita 1, and then we didn't really get Optimus Prime until episode 2. So I guess I'll kind of go into the episodes one by one now, talk about how I felt about each episode. Episode 1 is basically just oh yeah, so spoilers, by the way. This is spoilers. If you've not watched the series yet, or at least stop watching until you've got up to the episode or haven't got up to the episode. So with episode 1, Megatron is basically conflicted on being evil. And I kind of like how Megatron actually has some kind of conflict in the measures he has to take in order to save Cybertron. Because that's all the Decepticons are focused on at first. Because Optimus Prime, he has gone off. There's no way of getting to him so far. So Megatron thinks of the only way he can, well, Shockwave actually thinks of the only way to kind of really restore Cybertron, at least, you know, the city of Kaon where Megatron is at, is to basically get the Decepticons and use their energon, basically harvesting them. He is harvesting his own people, and Autobots as well, of course, because in the beginning we have Elita 1 actually freeing a batch of Decepticons who have been imprisoned by Megatron to be used for this harvest. Because he's closing down sectors one by one. Well, Shockwave's closing down like sectors one by one. And there's a scene where Megatron actually goes to a sector before he actually makes the decision to kind of close off these sectors. And you see the Decepticons really happy that he's here and all that stuff. And then he's kind of like, yeah, these guys are weak. It's like, but he hasn't made a decision yet, you know, because they're still his faction. And it's Shockwave pressuring it. Well, not pressuring him, but kind of like just like, we need to do this. We have to do this. And at the end, we see Megatron having to make that decision. And it was just good that he actually had that conflict of if he should harvest his own people. And we also have a little bit of a crazy Megatron as well, because he's talking to Ultra Magnus's head throughout a few episodes, actually. It actually only talks to him, I think, from episodes 1 to 3 or 2. No, 1 to 2, yeah. It's just his head on the table. And he's just like, don't judge me. Don't talk. You know, he's just kind of like, he's kind of losing his mind a little bit, you know, which is development. But one of the main criticisms I of course have about Megatron is just his slow speech pattern. This ain't really a discredit to the voice actor, because I like the voice tone of Megatron. I just wish the dialogue was just so much like quick. It's just so slow. It is painfully slow, and it really takes you out of the show sometimes. So it's kind of like, okay, get to the point. It's really annoying. It's really noticeable. But other than that, with Elita's side, we'll go on to her now. She's running the Autobot show. She's obviously freeing Decepticons, and Jetfire's like, why are we doing this? And she's like, because I'm a good person and they could help us out someday, which they do later on. But kind of all the characters within Elita's faction are really growing on me. I like Jetfire. I like Red Alert. I like his jokes. There's a lot of good jokes spread out across this series. And there's one joke in particular where I think Elita 1 says, stay alert. And Red Alert's like, I always am. Because obviously his name. It's like, haha, joke. Laugh at it. And I actually really chuckled at that. I thought that was quite cool. So far, yeah, I am liking how they started out with episode 1. Even though if you watch it on normal mode, it is painfully boring. Like, not painfully boring, but just a drag. Okay, I'll say that. It's just a drag if you watch it on normal speed. If you actually watch it on 1.5 speed, it feels a lot better. Like, generally, it just makes you feel better. I'm really going on about this a lot, but I have to emphasize it. Speed up your show, please. Just a little bit. Going on to episode 2 now, we actually jump forward to the Autobots on the Ark, and we have the mercenaries introduced. We have characters such as Double Dealer, Bugbite, Exhaust, and the Coneheads. It's good having them inclusion, but they are on a job by the Quintessons to deliver the Autobots to them. And the Quintessons are done kind of really well. And unfortunately, actually, I'll get onto that a little bit later. I'll just start off how I felt about them to start off with. Because I'm not really going to go into the voice acting so much, because I did that on Siege, and I don't want it to seem like I'm judging the talent. Like, there are good talent on this, but there are just characters such as Einhide, which is like, alright, you got Wheeljack sounding like Wheeljack. Why can't Einhide sound like Einhide? Like, come on, Prime, why is it so hard to get my voice like this? But Ironhide doesn't really come into play until a few episodes anyway. We mainly get focuses on like RC or Wheeljack or Bornby that get a lot of kind of dialogue time, and with Optimus Prime as well. But what they did with the Quintessons is that they kind of made them not the creators of the Transformers, but kind of the liberators of the Transformers. They basically kind of freed them. They kind of like stopped them from being like slaves and that. They saw potential in them, but while at the same time being very demonic about it and making them kind of fight on their behalf and, you know, kind of just using them a little bit. And that's what led to, obviously, Megatron rising up and all that stuff. And it was kind of a good twist, because I really don't like the idea of the Quintessons being the creators of the Transformers. I've never liked that idea, you know, even from Generation 1. I liked that it was in Generation 1, it was cool, yeah. Even though it's kind of a little bit mixed, but the lore of the Transformers is very obviously complicated and it's various from different kinds of continuities. But they do have a lot of good multiple personalities, and the voice acting is actually really good for a majority of the Quintessons. It's just the one that I criticised in the trailer turns out to be the main one that actually goes forward into the plot. So basically, the Quintessons with different personalities have a different way of approaching how to deal with the Autobots, because they don't like how they were kind of outcasted. You know, as the Transformers were liberated from the Quintessons, they didn't like the way how they were treated, so they were kind of like exiled. And one of them in particular has a really, really, you know, evil gripe against him. And what he decided to do, I think it was called Duocon? I can't remember his name. I can't remember what one of the names is, but I'm just going to call it Quintesson for reference. Basically what he does is he cuts off the rest of the other faces of the Quintessons, and there's a scene where it shows you, and it's really kind of horrified actually. It was kind of like, oh god, that's a bit gross. Oh yeah. During all of this, the mercenaries that captured the Autobots, they're actually waiting to get paid by the Quintesson. But then, of course, he ain't going to get paid. And they actually kind of help the Autobots out a little bit to escape, which, by the way, the Autobots are not prisoned for long. I actually can't remember how they actually escaped. Like, it happens so quick. Like, first minute, they're locked up and chained, and then next minute, they're for free. And I'm like, oh, okay. And this is when I had it on normal speed. That's when I actually slowed it down a little bit. I was like, okay, I'll have this scene on normal. And I was just watching, I was like, wait, how did they get out so quickly? But either way, the mercenaries kind of have a change of heart. In fact, they have a lot of various changes of hearts throughout the series. They decide to help the Autobots escape, and the Quintesson, yeah, just the one Quintesson now, he's kind of left behind, and he kind of goes away a little bit throughout the plot. He shows up a little bit later on. Now, while that's going off with Optimus Prime and his crew, we have Elita 1 actually captured by Megatron and the Decepticons. They're locked up, ready to be used for the harvest. But she actually gets saved by the Decepticons she saved in the first episode, which was like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty cool. So it's kind of like showing to Jetfire that doing nice things for people who were usually against us, it may actually turn out well on us. And even though it's kind of like, how did he save him? How did he get through security? It's like, okay, there's a lot of questions how that one Decepticon who was already weakened and damaged managed to save these lot out. But either way, they managed to escape. But I have to say, the most stupidest thing I've ever seen in this series, thus far, there's quite a few, but the one that made me laugh the most that was stupid was as they're trying to hide, to sneak through with stealth, for some reason, Jetfire slips, or he just moves, and he bangs on the window, and the Decepticons see him. And I saw that, and I laughed. I really laughed. I was just like, okay, that just happened. God, that was painful to watch. One thing that they do that's really nice is that as they're trying to escape, we actually have one of Megatron's crew members, who I can't remember the name of because he's so irrelevant. He's kind of like a purple looking character. He just kind of sees them and he's letting them go. And we're like, what? He's like, well, I don't agree with Megatron's harvest, so you can escape. And they're kind of like, thanks. But he's like, but you got to shoot me, or you got to hit me to make it seem like I didn't let you escape. So I thought that was cool, that they showed that not all Decepticons are agreeing with the harvest idea. Anyway, throughout the episode, as Elita and them lot escape, Megatron decides to divert all plans to saving Cybertron to actually go after Optimus Prime because, well, the mercenaries, the double dealers, actually give Megatron the hint of where they are, and Megatron uses all of his resources that he has of a harvest to power up the Nemesis, even though it's Shockwave's like, wait, what about Cybertron? He's like, but the Allspark's more important, so we'll use all these bodies to charge up the Nemesis. Now with episode 3, we go to the Nebulon station. So we have the Autobots approaching this space bridge, which they're not sure if they should go to at first because it will use up all the resources. If there's nothing there, they'll be stranded there. So they go there, and well, there's half a ship stuck in the space bridge. And the Autobots go on board, and they're trying to think of a plan of how to actually separate it, because they need to get through it, because they need more resources. Weirdly enough, there's two cogs, and, well, not Cog himself, there's two red ones, and I can't remember what their names are. I don't think they're an actual toy. Anyway, you just notice these characters immediately, because they go separate places around the ship to plant the bombs to make it separate. So you've got Mirage and Sideswipe and one red cog, and then you've got RC and Wheeljack with one red cog going on the opposite side. And you look at these red cogs, they're going to be dead immediately. Like, they've got nothing to them. When they die, the Autobots don't even care. I mean, there's a lot of reused designs. Not as heavily, but in the beginning episodes, there's a lot of reused designs, especially when you, with the leader side with the Decepticons, but at this point, it's like, whatever. But we have Scorponok show up when RC and Wheeljack are about to detonate it. And of course, when he shows up, he kills the red cog. I actually can't remember how the other red cog dies, but he does die later on. But there is one really, really cool moment when we have Scorponok reveal himself. You know, he's really giant. You know, he's brutal. We have a moment where we think Omega Supreme is back, because as Mirage and Sideswipe come to save or help out RC and Wheeljack, he uses his hologram that shows Omega Supreme charging towards Scorponok, but then you realize it's a hologram, and for a moment I was just kind of like, you tricky Mirage. That was actually pretty cool. I actually really liked that. So that was cool. And then we have a part which is also stupid that I found very, very funny. And just animation error. This is like an animation error just because of how close the characters were together and how the scene played out. So we have Optimus Prime and Bumblebee come out and help the Autobots take on Scorponok. And there's a lot of confusion of backing away from it. You know, Optimus Prime's taking on Scorponok by himself. And he's kind of like telling the Autobots to leave. But then the Autobots are kind of like, well, what do we do? It's like, he just told you to leave. You know, he's got this. And with their bickering, Optimus Prime's like worried of what's happening to them. And he gets attacked. But then they run away anyway altogether. And then you've got a part where Bumblebee's literally right next to Optimus Prime. And they start falling back. But then somehow Bumblebee is extra apart. And he's barely getting through the door as they close the door for Scorponok. And I'm just kind of there like, why is Bumblebee just placed back? Why was there that necessary risk of, oh, will Bumblebee make it? Of course he's going to make it. He's yellow. I mean, come on. You really think Bumblebee's going to die? So they just kind of pushed him back an extra few feet from Optimus Prime to make it seem like, oh, he's not going to make it? Or do you think? It's like, yeah, he's going to make it. But it don't matter anyway, because within episode 4, Scorponok's very, very angry. He breaks through the doors and we start fighting all over again anyway. But we have a good kind of episode within this. I liked episode 4 because we get a lot of Optimus Prime and Megatron, because Megatron finally finds the space bridge. He finds the Autobots. He goes on board. And we have a kind of alliance but non-alliance at the same time, as the Autobots are about to be kind of, well, grounded down by the Scorponok character. We do have, why did I say it like that? The Scorponok character. I do know Transformers. I really, really do. Anyway, we get the Decepticons saving the Autobots a little bit. Well, not really, but they're just fighting it, you know, just because. We have Megatron. This is the part where I had to speed it up, because we got Megatron and Optimus talking while this giant, you know, Decepticon, well, it's Scorponok, as he's fighting all these characters. You've got Megatron just like focused on killing Prime. I'm like, dude, there's a giant character there, you know, attacking all your men. And it amazes me how they have enough animation and firepower to fight on this character for so long. There were some positives I liked about the fight with Scorponok. I liked that Ravage, as he grabbed hold of Soundwave, he ejected Ravage with his big chunky thighs that Ravage has, and he just goes onto Scorponok's face. I thought it was cool to give Ravage some action. There's actually a lot we learn about Scorponok actually, which is really interesting. There's a part where he overhears Megatron say something about the Quintessons, and he starts speaking, and you think for a minute like, oh, maybe he's coming to around on their side, or maybe they could help out, take on the Quintessons together. But it turns out no. But Scorponok, it reveals his backstory, how he's basically the last of the Scorponok's, how the Quintessons basically killed and destroyed his entire family, how he's the only one left. But there's a lot of stupidness that happens a little bit, because there's parts where Megatron's grounded Optimus Prime, and the Autobots are right behind Megatron, and they could easily shoot Megatron, to be fair, and give Optimus Prime a window of just a strike, but they just don't do it. And it just, from the angle of how it is, it's like you could easily shoot him, you could easily catch him off guard, but they don't. And then Optimus Prime gets a grenade, throws it, blasts, and you assume that Scorponok's dead, but he's not. He comes back later, which is also something that I thought was a bit weird, because as Optimus Prime and Megatron get trapped, because it was a massive explosion, the other Autobots are trapped from where they were before, turning off the anti-gravity machine. But Megatron and Optimus Prime are trapped below somewhere, and you'd think that explosion, being pretty big, would have killed Scorponok. But no, he comes back a bit later on with barely a dent in him. And this was an explosion, by the way, that was supposed to have destroyed half of the ship. And it's like, okay, whatever. When we have Optimus Prime and Megatron trapped, I really did like the kind of... I do actually like the dialogue that they have in this series. And I think it's obviously worked a bit better when it's speeded up a little bit. But I liked how they were trapped, and Optimus Prime's kind of having this really inner conflict, which gets kind of wrapped up a little bit in the next episode. But we have Megatron stuck. He's got a giant pike right through him, and he can't get it out. And there's a shot that looks a bit too romantic. There's a shot where Optimus Prime's really sick of what Megatron's saying, and he just kind of gets a little bit too close to Megatron, and he like has his hands like on the side of him. I'll show you the screenshot. I was just kind of like, gee, I thought he was going in for a kiss there. Like, okay, Optimus Prime, is this the way to stop the war? Are you going to smooch him? Is this going to stop it? Does Megatron actually want your love? Is this it? Have you read through the lines? Anyway, whatever. Anyway, we move on to episode 5. No, okay, so what happens is that they get out. They kind of work together a little bit. But then Megatron's trying to kill Optimus Prime again. Okay, I'm kind of losing it here a little bit. Anyway, we all get to the ships. Optimus Prime gets to the ships. It takes a long time for them to get to a door. They take a lot of time to get through the door as the Decepticons are fighting Scorponok. It takes ages to get to the door. That's why I've written my notes. I've written my notes, but it takes ages to get to a door. Anyway, the Autobots win the arc. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Starscream's a little bit of a pain in this episode. Starscream's treachery, as we all know, and we kind of love that about him, but in this series, I don't like it. It's just annoying, and it's just... the dialogue's a bit cringy with him sometimes. But yeah, he gets knocked by Megatron, and he decides to flee to the Nemesis and decides to destroy the entire thing with Megatron with it, because he thinks he's in charge for a little bit. And well, obviously the blast doesn't work out as well, because then we end up going to this dead universe, which is where episode 5 comes in. So this is the first time in the series that we actually have a flashback, which is kind of cool, because they talk about the war a lot, we talk about the past, but we don't actually see any of it, which is why I always kind of like to have had this series made where they had the origins of Cybertron to start off with, as Optimus Prime as a clerk and then Megatron as a young scout, and then they kind of worked to that. But anyway, we have a flashback of Alpha Trion and, weirdly enough, Skylynx. Now, we don't like Skylynx in the beginning of this episode. He is really obsessed with having the Matrix, and Alpha Trion be like, if you carry on, I'm going to send you to a dead universe. And he just charges at him and he sends him to the dead universe. And throughout all this time, he has been trapped there, contemplating on his actions, and becomes the kind of wise, thoughtful thinker that we recognize him as from Generation 1, which was actually a really cool twist. And I think episode 5 is actually one of the best episodes of this series. I really did enjoy it, more so when it was speeded up. But it's actually a really good episode. So the dead universe, it kind of be a bit confusing sometimes. We got ships in one void, we got the Nemesis outer void and then the inner void. This is the episode with Galvatron, by the way, which is done really, really well. I actually kind of really like him, and it kind of is a bit, I don't know, chilling a little bit. I don't think it's ever going to get wrapped up, but I just kind of like how Galvatron was included. Kind of a bit misleading a bit of how he's used, thinking he's going to be a part of the series for as long as you think, but he's not. Which kind of probably is better for the plot, to be fair, but it's kind of was teased that he was going to be in a bit more. But basically, just start before I get into the Galvatron bit, we have Skylynx and Optimus Prime kind of together. And we're like, is that Skylynx? Like, what's he doing here? So Optimus Prime be talking to him, thinking he's the same. But turns out, no. Skylynx is actually teaching Optimus Prime how to wield the power of a Matrix, how to actually be a different person. Because so far, Optimus Prime, his logic ain't working. Hope, 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 hope. Skylynx like, you need action. And he's like talking to him throughout the episode. It's a good reminiscent, a good homage. There's a lot of good references. There's the G1 death reference as well. Like, this is what will happen, or this will probably still happen if you don't do this, whatever. Skylynx is talking a lot of stuff. This is Optimus Prime's therapy session that he's always been needing from the very first episode. And Megatron is getting the same treatment with Galvatron. So, Galvatron's introduction was really, really cool. It was like how he was transformed from Megatron to Galvatron first time in the animated movie. The whole pattern in the background, how he's formed. And he's very, very clean. Galvatron actually takes care of himself. He's basically with Megatron, teaching him how you've got to just kill Prime. If you don't kill Prime, I don't exist. Oh, okay, so you want me to reenact the Generation 1 movie? Okay, I could do that, Megatron be like. And there's a lot of cool scenes with Galvatron. His voice is not that too different from Megatron, just a little bit tuned up. Of course it would be, like with the original. There's a part in it towards the end where they kind of wrapped up a lot of things before they get pulled back. Because Galvatron be like, Megatron, destroy Optimus Prime now before he escapes. And he's like, okay. He blasts it, but then Skylynx saves the day and actually sacrifices himself with the Autobots to get out of the dead universe. And Galvatron being failed to have him destroy Optimus Prime in that moment, he gets pulled back to wherever he came from. And we get a glimpse of Unicron. And it's kind of cool how he gets pulled back. I can't remember the exact line that Unicron said, but something like, you have disappointed me or something. Now his voice, I'm not going to get into. It's a voice. I didn't really think of it that deeply. It could have probably gone a bit more boomier with his voice, but it was fine. The inclusion of Unicron is literally just an image, just like a simple JPEG image, which is pretty much all we could ask for, to be fair, and pretty much all of the tease we could ask for of whatever, if he's actually ever going to have a inclusion in the third series. I don't know. It's a bit all gobbly-goobly anyway, timey-wimey stuff of complications that will probably complicate the plot even further if they decide to even develop it. Now we go on to episode 6, the final episode. And boy, a lot of stuff happens in this episode. That was really exciting. That kind of is making me looking forward to Kingdom now. So we have Optimus Prime and Megatron finally fight, and we have a lot of good Generation references kind of reverted a little bit. Optimus Prime is being really, really brutal on Megatron because he knows he has to just kill him because there's more casualties that are going to happen. It's kind of like Batman and Joker, but except let's just kill the Joker. And they've obviously meddled with that, and now the Transformers are going to be doing that in this scene. And we have a lot of good lines that are kind of like a good homage to Generation 1, but flipped on itself a little bit. But then we have perhaps the most on-the-nose reference, as Optimus Prime and Megatron are really, really fighting because they managed to get onto the Ark, because they are literally close to Earth. Like, they are in Earth's atmosphere. So as this is all going off, they have no power. So the Decepticons get onto the Ark, battle them all. And as Optimus Prime and Megatron are fighting, there's a part where Optimus Prime is literally about to shoot Megatron. He's like, please forgive me for doing this. And he's like, you won't do it. And then as he's about to fire, Cog, just like Hot Rod, shows up, like, just like it was. And he's like, what are you doing? It's kind of a flip. And then Optimus Prime's like, really? It's been 35 years and this is happening again? Is this happening again? We finally get past these years of that traumatizing event of Hot Rod. And now we have it repeated with Cog. But it's fine. This show isn't as important as that movie. But it was just kind of funny to have that homage like that. I thought that was really funny. But then Cog sadly gets pulled away. He actually is assumed dead. He goes out there. I'll get onto Cog a little bit later. But then Optimus Prime and Megatron do more talking. And it's really annoying for some parts. Because they're just bickering. And it's just kind of like, get to it. I enjoyed some of the dialogue, but it kind of dragged on a little bit. It really, really dragged on. Which is why I had to speed it up 1.5. Wheeljack devises a plan how to get the weapons on the Nemesis ships online to fire at the mercenary ship. But it gets overridden pretty quickly by Cog. So we kind of have a unknown hero in a sense that doesn't get the recognition that he deserves from the Autobots because he's assumed dead. They're like asking where's Cog, but he's floating and he somehow manages to get onto the mercenary ship and he overrides it. And it turns out that actually Double Dealer and his crew were controlled by the Quintessons this entire time, because it's kind of like, okay, he's a double dealer, so you expect to be double crossed. But then actually no, it turns out that the Quintesson was controlling them this whole time, and he's been the one that's kind of like trying to obviously attack and destroy the Transformers because he's got a massive gripe against them. And there's a part where it's kind of really sad in a way, because it's like Cog manages to stop the Quintesson, but then of course he gets killed, he gets stabbed, and the Quintesson kind of goes away. Don't know where the Quintesson goes off to. Probably something to revive back into the next series. But then Cog is just kind of there, like trying to let the Autobots and Decepticons know, like, I'm alive, I've got control of it. You don't need to fire, you don't need to destroy it, or whatever. But unfortunately, the mercenary ship explodes, and it's kind of really a sad scene, to be fair. Even though Cog is a character that I didn't really know. He didn't really do much. So why do I feel sad? It's because he didn't really do much. That's why I kind of wish there was more Cog. Of a new character that I didn't really care for died. It was very sad. But he didn't get enough. But it was cool still nonetheless to have him kind of do that. But on Elita's side, back on Cybertron, we have Shockwave using his teleportation device, his cloaker of sorts, because Elita 1 is devising her own plan. Oh yeah, so Elita 1 and her crew, who she rescued the Decepticons, they are basically putting a stop to Shockwave once and for all. They're going to take the entire base offline. Unfortunately, Elita 1 gets captured by Shockwave, eventually gets all overridden. And there's a moment where we think Chromia is dead, which was actually more sad. I was like, she's just dead like that? Because she had a lot of good lines throughout this series, Chromia did. I actually liked Chromia a lot. But then she gets shot, and there's a moment where you think she's dead. But no, she's alright. She's the one that frees them from when they were captured. Because they get captured kind of pretty easily. But moving on to that, that's kind of all that happens with the leader's side. When it comes to the climax of the series, it was kind of like, not rushed, but it kind of felt like, oh, okay, that's over quick. Oh, I thought we had more scenes left. It's like, no, it's kind of over pretty quick. Basically, Megatron takes the Matrix from Optimus Prime. The mercenary ship blows up. We start launching towards Earth. And then at the end, we have Dinobot revealed. He's noticing what's coming towards Earth. So whatever's in the future that comes to the past, they're already set up on there. And then the episode cuts off. Oh god, okay. So, how I felt about the series in general, with the spoilers attached. I did like the references, and I did like a lot of cool things they incorporated, which were very different. It definitely felt like a new coat to the series, like a different kind of vibe, which was nice. Of course, for me, it was helped out with the speed, which I don't want to go on too much anymore because I've already made jokes and already talked about it enough. But let me know in the comment section below how you actually feel about that. Did you have to do that? Did you notice a change? That's all I'll say about that. It was definitely an improvement over the last series, and I'm kind of actually looking forward to Kingdom now. So well done, you've actually got me excited for Kingdom a little bit, because I actually didn't want to review this series, not in a mean way, not in an aggressive way. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know what I'm expecting kind of thing. Like, I'm not sure what I'm going to be expecting, which is why I wanted to do a big review instead of like separate. Because I don't want to drag this on as much as the show kind of drags. But then this show, while it does drag and it has a lot of bizarre dialogue and the voice acting is a bit rough in a few areas, overall I think there are a lot of things from the last series as an improvement on this series. So that's a positive, and I really like that. I really like that this show has kind of changed my mind a little bit. And I'm hoping that the third time is definitely the charm with Kingdom. With a lot of new characters being introduced that we've already seen with the toy lines. There's a lot of things to look forward to now. So overall, yeah, that's my review of the series. It was just fine. Like, it was definitely an improvement over Siege. Siege, boring. Earthrise, not bad. Yeah. Anyway, guys, this has been Comedy Cam. Let me know what you think of Transformers Earthrise in the comment section below. And for more news on the trilogy, be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell to get all updates instantly. This has been Comedy Cam, and until the next video, goodbye.